Mayo experience back in our temporary location after a quick venture down to Boston at Gillette Stadium, then in the DraftKings studios. We will be getting our new studio at some point, hopefully before the end of the new year, and we're going to continue to run the prizes in the competition. So if everyone gives the video a like, that's step one. Step two would be give me your favorite sleeper this week for the Shriners Open below $7,600. So $7,500 and below, your favorite play includes your DraftKings handle, and boom, you're in the draw for some prizes that we have coming up once we get in to that new studio. Joining me on the line to break down the Shriners Open from a DraftKings perspective, it's James Miles, fantasy free agent. What's going on, dude?
What's up, Pat? Happy Halloween, man. I hope I'm not cursing the show by jumping on this week, and hopefully we got some good picks. I'm excited about our sleepers under 7,500, though. There's a lot this week.
I mean, after you're done, you can kind of bring one up, then go back to the comment section, post it in, then you're in the draw, too.
I need to do that. I absolutely will. I'll set a good example for the listeners this week.
Yeah, absolutely true. And, people are kind of down on golf because NFL is in full swing. Although I feel like people have been doing so poorly at NFL that maybe it's time to venture back into golf a little bit.
I wish DraftKings would venture back into golf with some money in the prize pools. Bums at the moment.
How dare you, sir? You can't say things like that on this show.
I know. I just, I really wish, I only care about golf and football, so I wish they would put all the money in those two sports and then none in basketball, but that's not realistic, and I'm just biased.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the Turkish Open this week, there's a lot of big names on that. We're not really going to be hitting that. There's stuff around the web if you want to go check that out. I know Wiley already has a pod up about it for Golflandia. You can go check that out. I know Frey has been doing some work. Adam Daly's been doing some work. So there's a lot of Euro stuff out there if you want to get it. But I want to focus on the Shriners because we're like 3 events left in the swing season before Tiger comes back?
Oh, my God. Yeah, the news that broke yesterday, Eldrick Woods is back in the swing. I feel like we are in for a repeat of last year, this year, with what happened to Tiger. I mean, didn't he come back at the Hero last year? Wasn't that the exact same circumstance?
He did. Then he tied for the week lead in birdies, despite tying for dead last after someone withdrew. But I don't know. After learning from his example last year that his back just couldn't handle it with the schedule that he tried to kind of put forth afterwards, you'd think that if he's doing it this time around, that maybe his back actually feels a little bit better.
I hope so. I kind of rag on it, but I really want to see Tiger back. I want to see a competitive Tiger that, his entrance is meaningful to a field, and not just for the TV ratings, but for the actual leaderboards. I want to see Tiger in, he's not going to be in his prime, but I do want to see a competitive Tiger, and I hope his back is right. I hope he learned his lesson. And but as far as we're just gonna have to wait and see. I'm not even gonna make any predictions this year.
Well, he opened. They just released some early odds on the Hero World Challenge. Now there's only 18 players in the field. He has the worst odds of anyone, but he's 50 to 1.
I was looking at Masters futures, and I think I saw him added to the field at 80 to 1.
Oh my God.
So yeah. So I don't know, but for everything else aside, I would love to see a healthy Tiger playing golf and get a full season in for him. And I think it would do wonders, not only for us DFSers, but just for golf in general. Tiger built this sport to what it is now, so you kind of have to give him that.
And I would assume that guys Rory may not be affected, Phil may not be affected, but your Justin Thomases, Jordan Spieths, those guys could really use a Tiger bump.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those guys, for us, they're really popular and they're engaging, but they're not dominating to like Tiger was to really draw in, new money to the sport and draw in new fans and probably some of the youth, but to really bring back the golf interest for, your middle-aged folks and, I guess I'm close to middle-aged now. So, folks like me draw us back into, back into golf, but it is sort of exciting, and I, kind of waiting with bated breath to see if he's going to come back and be healthy.
Yeah, well, it's a big thing where if Tiger plays, the ratings for whatever event it is basically triple. And, he hasn't really been around when Spieth has been good, when Thomas has been good. Rory gets the bump. He's played with Rory. People know Rory. People know Phil. People know Sergio. A lot in kind of context of Tiger playing, so they've seen these guys. So all that sort of the new up-and-comers, imagine even Brooks Koepka, the sort of bump that he could have, playing a good round if he was playing with Tiger Sunday at Augusta. Even if it wasn't the final round, he would get so much coverage to be like, wow, this Brooks Koepka guy has a major and he's playing with Tiger. Now I know who he is. It could really do a lot for some of the young guys, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just gets it allows them to build their brand sort of associated with him just because of the additional eyes that Tiger draws, and I think just the strengthening of the brand of the the lower tier, I guess I say lower tier, but the non-Tiger players that are at the top of their games right now would certainly benefit from that. So I'm on board with you there.
All right, well, let's get into the Shriners Open, TPC Summerland. Tough fairways to hit at this event, but the greens of regulation are higher than your average course, so if you do miss the fairway, it seems like you're able to scramble fairly easily. Greens in regulation are going to be big. I really focused for key stat-wise on strokes gained ball striking. That was my heaviest weight in the model that I ran this week. And you can get in it. Listen, if you don't agree with me, if you sign up for fantasynational.com right now, become a member, you can build your own model, weight everything how you like, and it'll spit out the numbers for you based on any custom range. So I recommend that everyone go do that. In my column up on DK Playbook and the cheat sheet, you can see that I actually have a list over the past 8, 24, and 50 rounds for strokes gained ball striking and strokes gained short game, which is strokes gained around the green plus strokes gained putting over that time frame as well, between the 8, the 24, and the 50. If you just want to search that, if you sign up for Fantasy National, become a member, you can search it from any range that you want to. And potentially simulations coming soon for, simulate 1,000 rounds, simulate 10,000 rounds, and see how many times guys make the cut. That's super interesting stuff to kind of figure out if that's what you like to play around with. Give yourself that extra edge. I mean, there's not a ton of members out there. This is a distinct advantage that you can get. So what do you make of this course? What type of player do you think that you're going to be targeting here?
Well, first, I want to back up and say kudos to Fantasy National for doing the course breakdown for you. If you're a member, and if you're not a member, you should be. You're leaving money on the table and losing an edge.
Yeah, it's not super expensive.
No, it's if you don't make your money back in a year, you're doing something wrong. But they have the most comprehensive course breakdown, like at a click now, folks. Like you click one button and it does all the work for you. Course breakdown, most important stats, holes, everything, the whole 9 yards. So I was a big fan when I saw that come out the other day. And Fantasy National is not paying me to say this, but it is the standard in terms of researching for golf. I think I actually said that it would be the standard right after they ended their beta program. So it's really exciting to see the stuff they're doing. But that said, I am looking at basic things you are, lots of DK points and lots of birdies and lots of ball striking. Those are my three most heavily weighted stats. I did throw in the holes par 4, 400 to 450 yards, approaches 150 to 175 and 200 plus. As well as fairways gained and greens in regulation gained. Those are what found its way into my model this week.
Yeah, well, it was tough for me. Like when I started weighting like greens in regulation gained, I feel like strokes gained ball striking kind of encompasses that, because greens in regulation are a part of the ball striking stat that I didn't want to go too heavy. It's like I didn't weight strokes gained approach all that highly in my model because I had strokes gained ball striking. Those kind of go, there's pieces of all of those things in strokes gained ball striking. I love strokes gained ball striking, by the way. It's like my favorite stat now.
Yeah, it sort of takes the two most important, like core importance of the game and just kind of blends them together. If you are good off the tee and you are good into the green, then it's left up to the most variant part of the game, which is putting, and anybody can fluctuate depending on the greens, Bermuda bent grass if you're into that whole splits thing. But I agree with you. It's probably the most important singular stat to weight or look at in any given week in terms of talent or to see form.
All right, so TPC Summerlin is a par 71. It's just over 7,200 yards. It's in Las Vegas, so lineup lock this week. We're out of Asia, so we're back to like normal times as it comes to lineup lock. 10 a.m. Eastern time. So you will be able to get up on Thursday morning, although the golf contests on DraftKings have been filling up so quickly that you might want to get in reserve a seat now so you can come back to it on Thursday morning. By the time you're left on Thursday morning, the big $4 will likely be full, and you'll be playing in like a pitiful stakes $4 because you missed out. So get into those contests now up at DraftKings.com. Let's break down the field. Tony Finau comes in as the favorite in terms of the betting odds. He's the highest priced DraftKings player this week. He is $11,700. That's a lot of money for Tony Finau. And then he's not the only guy at $11,000 or above, because Webb Simpson, former winner of this event, is there right too. Then it's Anirban Lahiri at 10-3, Chappell at 10-2, and Cheston Hadley at 10-1. I kind of scoffed at Hadley's price last week, how he was the highest priced guy in the field for Sanderson Farms, but he didn't win. But he was probably the best out of all the top guys. He ended up inside the top 5, so he's been playing really well recently too. Do you have a preference of any of these guys at the top? Because I feel like if people can afford it, they're going all in on Tony Finau.
Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at too in terms of the real top end guys above $10,000. Lahiri might be my second favorite guy, just because I feel like they'll be in GPPs, they'll just be significant leverage. But it's hard to get away from Finau. His form, I mean, over the last 5 events, he's gained 26.7 strokes on the field, and here at this course, last 5 years, he's gained 16.5 strokes on the field. So it's hard for me to get away from Tony Finau, and he scores well. We're on bent grass, so you're not afraid of the putting splits. Yeah, I don't see myself paying $11,000 for Webb. I know he's won the event before, incredible ball striker, but if his ball striking's not perfect this week, I don't see him making any extra long putts to help his DraftKings scoring, and that's where I kind of put Finau above him, and I'd rather take the extra 700. Lahiri's been hot recently, so I can see a couple of GPP darts on him, and plus he scores pretty well in terms of DraftKings points. I have a hard time getting behind Kevin Chappell at the moment, and I like Chesson Hadley's price better this week than I did last week. But I think all the real ownership is going to fall just below this range, to be honest.
Well, Chesson Hadley in his last 5 events, this includes the Web.com finals as well in those playoffs, 2nd, 3rd, 46th, 2nd, 1st. Then if you go back, 10th, miscut, 3rd. Like he's on quite a run right now. It wouldn't be surprising to see him win, but and I've fallen for this trap before. I mean, the big examples from last year is I'd been betting Stanley all year long, and his odds and price got too high, and I didn't get on him. He won. Same thing happened with Russell Henley. Same thing happened with Kevin Chappell. Is this just a spot where we should just kind of jam him in because he's just playing so well and the breakthrough looks like it's coming?
Not for me, because I'm going to weigh strength of field a little bit here, and the events that he's played really well in, and everything else it was a lower tier of talent. We're back to a little bit stronger field, and that's where I'm going to bump Chesson Hadley down. I think a top 20 is probably well within his range here, but I don't see him winning this event.
Okay,
it's probably going to bite me.
I mentioned the simulations. It's in the beta program right now. We're still testing it out to make sure that it's accurate. It works seamlessly in terms of the webpage. But at fantasynational.com right now, the 5 guys who in 10,000 simulations have won the most that they're projected to win. Do you know who those 5 guys are?
I don't, but I have to imagine that Cantlay is probably one of them.
Cantlay is not one of them. Tony Finau.
Wow.
Tony Finau is number 1. Out of 10,000 tournaments, he wins about 400 times. Then it's Webb Simpson. Then it's Bubba Watson. Then Austin Cook. And then Kevin Na. That would be the top 5 in terms of this particular simulation. Now, you can't just trust simulations blindly. You have to be able to put some context into it. But I thought that was kind of intriguing to see Bubba so highly on that list. And, Finau and Webb kind of justifying their high price on DraftKings this week.
The Webb thing scares me, but the talent is certainly there. The guy's won a major. The Bubba thing is not that surprising to me, maybe because he keeps showing up in models I'm building and ranks pretty highly for me this week. Prior to last year and some of the issues, the no sugar diet and the weight loss and everything, he was an incredible cut maker and DraftKings scorer. So if he gets back to any kind of form, I can certainly see why the models would like him that much.
And he's a very reasonable price this week. So the sub $10,000 level, we have Cantlay at 9.7, Woodland, Moore, Na, Benny Ann at 9.1, then Charlie Hoffman, local guy in Vegas, at $9,000. Then in that next little dip down, you have Bubba, Kokrak, Lovemark, Laird, JB Holmes, Streelman, Liss, Kaufman, who's won this event before. It took a miracle final round, but he did it. And he ended up walking away with his first career win. I remember David Jane, ended up betting him 200-1 in that tournament. Nailed it. That's a big, big win for Smiley Kaufman when he was a rookie. Then you have, Jimmy Walker's in this field. He's only $8,000. Ryan Armour won last week. He is 8-1. Who from that sort of range, the $8,000 to $10,000 area, you mentioned that you were very interested in it. Who are you going with?
I think the one that I probably like the most is Streelman for consistency.
Really? That is not. I did not expect that.
Well, listen, to be honest, I don't either, and I'm still not terribly comfortable with it. But I can't, I have to rely on my research and some of the stats here. So, in the last 5 events, their last 5 tournaments he's played here at TPC Summerlin, he's gained 22.11 strokes on the field. In the last 5 events he has played, he's picked, just in general, he's picked up 14.96. So it's hard for me to say that this doesn't set up pretty well for him, and it's a decent price. So I think if you're playing cash, Kevin Streelman fits pretty nicely. The guy that I probably like the most for GPPs is JB Holmes. He has not been playing very well, and he hasn't played very well at this event, but he does have the type of game that can score DraftKings points pretty well. And all he has to do is club down a little bit to hit these fairways. It's not a terribly long course. Everything's in range for him. So I like him from a DK point scoring perspective. I will be owning some of Bubba Watson up there at the top. We just kind of talked about him, so I don't want to belabor the point. But the other guy is Smiley Kaufman. I do like Smiley Kaufman to kind of start a better season off at a place that he's comfortable with, and kind of get back in the groove after all of his buddies and cronies are out here winning golf tournaments and setting the world on fire. So those are the plays in there. I was actually on Ryan Armour for a little sprinkle last week in the betting market, and I hit him. So I'm going to rapidly get away from him so I don't lose money back betting on him again.
Yeah, it would strike me as odd that Ryan Armour would end up going back-to-back. You don't normally see when you see like a big name guy win an event, they tend to translate that over to the following week and go on a bit of a run. When it works the other way, and it's sort of a relative unknown that ends up winning a tournament, that rarely works out well when they play like 4 days later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and actually, to kind of go back to a point you made a second ago with DJ hitting Smiley Kaufman at 200-1, that's the kind of guy that's going to win this golf tournament this week. It's going to be like 110 or better, in my opinion. Just that those are the guys that tend to win at this course for a first tournament win. It just kind of seems to set up that way in terms of the trend. So I think that you can spread it out down here in the lower range, and you might get lucky with the winner. But I do think that the winner is going to come from outside of the the upper third of this field.
Well, you mentioned Smiley Kaufman. He is at $8,200, $100 more. My main man, Luke List, sitting right there. He was in position to win this tournament last year and then just kind of had a very middling final round and couldn't come through. List has been so close. Doesn't this just... The swing season always strikes me as a time where you can have your new players come in and win from the web.com tour because they're taking it very seriously. But then you also have sort of the PGA regulars that came really close during the season, couldn't get a win, and then they break through in the swing season. Doesn't this feel like the perfect spot for List?
It does, actually. I mean, I don't know if he can get it done, but I don't know if I want to bet him outright. But I do think he makes an excellent DraftKings play this week because he is going to score. He's been pretty hot recently, picking up 19.65 strokes over the last 5 events total. So, he should be scoring well. And if he doesn't win, you don't have to worry about your outright. But he should score plenty of DraftKings points this week, and he's not going to be chalk. So I think that's always the best time to get on Luke List just in general from a GPP plays perspective is if he's less than 7 or 8% owned, even 9-10% owned. If he's less than that and he's in decent shape, he's going to score well. So I think you're right. It's a good spot to get on List for DraftKings this week.
Is there anyone else in this range that you would be considering? Like Charlie Hoffman, I mentioned, local guys. No matter how many times you run it, he was kind of awful at the Tour Championship, but he had played so many weeks in a row. And he's had like a 3-week break now. I feel like this could be a spot for Charlie here, and his driving off the tee has been so good. He hits so many fairways, and a lack of distance here. Well, the bigger bombers can improve their accuracy by clubbing down. At the elevation in Las Vegas, they can get the extra distance, but so can those shorter hitters that do keep it in the middle of the fairway too. So I really, in terms of strokes gained driving, I think you just want to see who hits a lot of fairways or who can just really nail it out there. There's no real in between like the shorter hitter sprayer guys. Like it's probably a good thing Patrick Reed isn't in this field.
Yeah, well, so there's a couple of things with Charlie Hoffman for me. One, we're expecting a little bit of wind this week. It's still early, and we'll have to see. But if you've never been to Las Vegas, it does get pretty damn windy there, and we can see the weather and the winds pick up pretty quickly on any given day. Out there in the desert, it's pretty exposed. So Charlie fits that profile pretty well. He plays well in the wind. He's got that controlled ball flight off the tee. My problem with Charlie Hoffman is he either misses the cut or he top tens this thing. So last year, missed cut. Year before, missed cut. Year before that, missed cut. 2014, oh, there we go. He finished 4th. And then a missed cut. So now, the third thing about Charlie Hoffman, he's donating all the money he makes this week to charities for the Las Vegas shooting victims. So there's like some real heavy narrative street for Charlie to show up this week and, you know, bank a top 10 or something and donate a whole boatload of cash to those folks. So this could be the year that he makes the cut, but overall, I'm not terribly fired up about roster and Charlie Hoffman. He's not been in form. He's losing 11.47 strokes over his last 5 events, and over the course of the last 5 years at this tournament, he's lost basically 5 strokes. So I'm a little hesitant to get on board with Charlie Hoffman this week, but I can see it.
Well, I mean, the big thing with Hoffman, the one thing that he has not been doing dating back to like the middle of the summer is he's just been losing strokes around the green, around the green, around the green. But the only really poor iron performance that he had was at the Tour Championship. He was just disaster at Eastlake. But, I mean, again, that's him after playing week after week after week. He went on such a super solid stretch through the midsummer, all the way kind of into the playoffs a little bit. I just think he's one of the class of this field that, like, even if you compare Hoffman to Tony Finau, yeah, in my mind, Tony Finau is objectively probably a better player, but at least Hoffman has a bunch of tour career wins. Like, he could win this event, and if you're getting him at that sort of mid-range price, he allows you to do a lot with your lineup, and I do think that he has a ton of upside.
I agree with the upside play, and the other thing I think that one of the reasons I like Charlie Hoffman is, if you remember, I can't remember what tournament it was, but he was in contention coming down the stretch, and his caddy's trying to talk him into, you know, a layup play, and the guy's like, "I'm tired of finishing second, man. I want to win." So, you know, if Charlie makes the cut or he's anywhere around there, he's going to be aggressive, and you know, he's going to be scoring. So if he can get his ass through the cut line, I think that Charlie Hoffman has a really good shot to contend, and he's going to be aggressive this year, just as he was last. And I think you're going to see him notch another tour victory again this year as well. Like I said, I'm hesitant because of his history here and his recent form, but I can see the upside with it for sure.
Jimmy Walker has not played in the last 9 weeks. When we think about good players in this field, historically speaking, Bubba Watson is obviously one of them, major champion Jimmy Walker, also a major champion, bunch of PGA wins. This is, I mean, it's usually January before he starts getting going with his sort of elite play, but now we're in the swing season. He's taking on a softer field. He hasn't played well in this event before, and of course, he was diagnosed with Lyme disease earlier this season, but now that he's taken so much time off, are you willing to risk it with him in your lineup? Because, I mean, if Charlie Hoffman has upside in this spot, we know that Jimmy Walker probably has equal or more upside in this spot, and he's $1,000 cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm playing 10 GPPs this week, I'll probably toss him into one for that exact reason. He's gained 14.2 strokes at this event over the last 5 years. He plays well in the wind. If the winds in Vegas do kick up a little bit, these greens are pretty big. They're easy enough to hit. If his iron plays a little off, he's a pretty good putter. And when his driver's on, you know, he can find these harder to hit fairways. So I'm with you on that. I think that he is worth a GPP sprinkle this week. Lots of upside, and I really think he's going to go under-owned. I don't think anybody's going to be looking at him. I actually think the bottom end of this 8K range and the upper end of the 7s is kind of dead. For people, there's like 5-6 golfers in line that I don't think anybody's really going to be looking at. They'll just kind of skip right over.
All right, well, let's get into those guys. The sub $8,000 area. Who are your favorites down here? You got Ben Martin. He's been playing okay. He's a former winner of this event. He's $7,900. Seamus Power, I love this week. He's $7,700. Even someone like local guy Nick Watney, $7,600. He went on like a mini run of not being terrible throughout courses of last season. So I'm not giving him a super hard look, but he was interesting. Who are your favorites in this range? And I do want to throw out Austin Cook at $75 and Nick Taylor at $7,600. Nick Taylor is supremely underpriced every single week. I don't even get it. I think it's because his name is Nick Taylor and he sounds like a create a player in Tiger Woods.
Yeah, actually, Nick Taylor rates out pretty well for me. You know, just to kind of start there, he's picking up 20.65 strokes over the last 5 events, and he's performed, you know, okay here in the past. I think that he makes for a good GPP play this week. The guy right above him, and this pains me to say it, it really does, because I actually really don't like this guy, but the stats kind of say I should play him this week, is Bryson DeChambeau. I think he's just underpriced, and I think he has enough game and enough consistency to, you know, to perform and play well here. The guy that I really do like is, and you hit right on him, is Seamus Power. I've liked this guy for a long time. I think I've bet him. I know I bet him last week, and he was in contention. He was playing really well, and he's starting to avoid that one really bad round a game or a week that he has, and I really do believe that his game has what it takes to win on the tour. I'm not sure if I see a win here this week for him, but I do just objectively like Seamus Power in this field and in general. Russell Knox is actually pretty interesting to me for a GPP play. If you move up to the $7,800 mark, he enjoys the desert golf. He enjoys this course. He's kind of gone, year after year, sort of alternating good finish, marginal finish, good finish, marginal finish. And if that pattern holds, we should be in for a good finish this year. He hasn't done anything recently, but we've seen some flashes from Russell kind of getting his game back together. And I do think that at a course he's comfortable with, you could see him pop for like a top 15 or a top 20 this week. So I do sort of like Russell for a GPP play, but only a little bit. I'm not going to get out of control with it, and I don't think anybody else should either. But at the very top of that range, Harris English is worth a GPP dart as well. Here he rates out fairly well in the model I'm looking at.
I don't know if I can get completely on board with Harris English because I have like another loser guy in that upper $7,000 area that I like, and again, the model doesn't really like him, but the projections really do, and maybe it's just based off his history and his ability to get hot and the ball striking that goes along with him. But he's been putting so poorly recently that it's hard to see it flipping anytime soon. But as we know, and you mentioned earlier, the high variance that comes with putting, you can get even a stable week from someone, and boom, they shoot right up the list. And it's Chris Kirk. Like when you run the simulations, and I'm looking at it right now, Chris Kirk rates out inside the top 15 in terms of win equity this week, despite the fact that no one really wants to use him, and he hasn't been very good. Do you have any thoughts on Chris Kirk?
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. You bring him up. He's kind of on my radar in general this year as having a resurgent year. I mean, we know how good he has been when he gets hot, and last year was just kind of hot garbage for him. So I think we're due for what's the fancy word in football nowadays? Positive regression. I think Chris Kirk is due for some positive regression this year, and I actually mentioned it on the Bogey Free podcast last week that in general I like Chris Kirk to have a better year, and it could start here. He's gained 3.8 strokes over the last 5 tournaments played here, and he's picking up 3.6 strokes over the last 5 tournaments he's played. So game's not quite there yet, but he is bringing it around, and I could see where somebody would get behind him. He's not popping in any of the things that I really am looking at, but that doesn't mean anything because, like you said, he's just kind of been down and not doing much. I can see why you like him, and I might have talked myself into a GPP dart right there. Thanks, Pat. Gonna lose money now.
Yeah, no problem on that. Listen, if Chris Kirk hits, we know we can win. That's more than we can say about a lot of the guys in this field. But
fair point.
But the big guy that I wanted to talk about in this mid $7,000 area, $7,500, it's Austin Cook. In my model, he ranks 4th right now in terms of win equity. When you run in the simulation 10,000 times, he wins the 4th most times of anyone in this field. He struggled at Sanderson Farms in the first round and then rebounded, and ended up having a pretty nice week. I like Austin Cook a lot. I don't want to go all in on him because, look, he's still someone who's fairly unknown. He doesn't have a long track record, but we've seen him compete in real PGA events before, even when he was a non-member. I think $7,500 is a very fair price. And maybe you can use him in cash games. I have no problem with that. I think Nick Taylor is safer, but I think Austin Cook definitely has more upside here.
Yeah, I actually bet him last week at the Sanderson Farms, and he's a guy I'm just going to continue to have a little sprinkle on until he wins because I do believe that he is that type of golfer. I believe that he has the ability to win a golf tournament, and when he gets, I think he's just kind of getting his sea legs on tour and getting comfortable, and once that happens, I think we're going to see some pretty good things out of him. He ranks, in one of the models I'm using right now, he ranks 24th. So he's inside my top 25, and that's always good for a GPP share. Yeah,
in my model over the past 24 rounds, he actually ranks 4th. He's a good ball striker. I mean, when I'm leaning on ball striking, certain guys are going to continue to pop. And the 2 other guys for me from down in this like scrub area below 7,500, one is Rory Sabatini, who just keeps popping up everywhere for me, which kind of terrifies me. Robert Garrigus is another one. The other guy who came 4th last week, and he's sort of an anomaly because you only have stats for 4 rounds, it's Scott Strohmeyer. He's the cheapest guy in the field. He's $6,600. He has the same win equity based on his numbers as Kevin Chappell, but you can kind of throw that out the window because we do not have a big sample size. He's only in this tournament because he came top 5 last week at Sanderson Farms. But does he intrigue you enough to throw a dart on? Because it's a complex situation where we're playing in the swing season. There's not a lot of people playing. I mean, 99% of people don't even know who Scott Strohmeyer is, but I feel like his stats are going to pop out. He had a top 5 last week. Do you think that he could end up being like chalk at 6,600?
I mean, relatively speaking, compared to the other people around him, he could be chalkier, but I don't think he's going to be chalk. I mean, I doubt his ownership gets above 8, 9, 10%. I would be surprised, man. I guess I would be. I'm reading the tea leaves incorrectly if he gets higher than that. I do like him down there at the min price. It allows you to grab like a Ryan Moore, Tony Finau stack or things like that. If you really feel good about the guys at the top. But he's clearly talented. He missed, if I remember correctly, he missed Q-Scoot qualifying by like 1 or 2 strokes, and then goes out in an actual PGA Tour event and fires a 4th. So that tells you how hard it is to get on the tour. But yeah, I don't. I mean, you look down at the bottom of this list. I don't see myself rostering anybody else below 6,700. Maybe a Jonas Blixt or a JJ Spawn, but other than that, I would just rather save the money and go all the way down to Strohmeyer, who has good form. I mean, last week he picked up 9.61 strokes on the field. But I think when we were talking before the show, you were telling me that almost all that is off the tee and with the putter, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. He gained 6.2 strokes off the tee, lost 0.5 through approaches, lost 2 around the greens, and gained 6.2 on the greens. Like, if that putting doesn't keep up, he probably comes like 56 or misses the cut.
Were they on bent grass last week too?
I believe so, yeah.
Maybe the putter, maybe the high putting doesn't scare me as much, but you look at some of the winners of this event and stuff, and they're not exactly bombers, so that kind of scares me a little bit. But a talented guy that's hot. I mean, who was the guy last year? I mentioned him before the show. That almost got his PGA Tour card with 6 top 10s in a row. Rafael Campos.
Oh, Campos.
He started at the Puerto Rico Open and went on a hot run. I mean, Strohmeyer could be this year's Campos.
We got some names below the $6,000 threshold too, like name brand players, like not the biggest of names, but like Daniel Summerhays is down there, Hollywood Hoagie is down there. I was looking for Haggy. Haggy's in this field, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. I saw him somewhere.
Yeah, Haggy's $6,900. Aaron Wise actually turned out a decent performance last week. He's $6,900. So who below the $7,000 line do you think you're going to go to? Because as much as I hate the guy, like I probably will be using a lot of Rory Sabatini.
I will let you use Rory Sabatini. I also hate Rory Sabatini, but I don't think I'm going to be going there. He has been, to his credit, he has been playing much, much better and been a bit resurgent in the later years of his career here. But my guy right below 7,000 is going to be Aaron Wise. He pops up highly in every model I run, and also Josh Culp is behind him. If you don't read Josh's stuff, you should check it out. He's got some interesting notes on Aaron Wise about his teacher and how his teacher feels like this is a good spot for him to win. But we know how talented Aaron Wise is, with the NCAA championship, things like that. I like Aaron Wise. He pops up in my comp courses model. He pops up in my main DK points model. He pops up in my strokes gained model. So Aaron Wise is probably the guy I'll center most of my ownership around below 7,000. The other guy that keeps popping up for me, and I don't really have a feeling one way or the other, but the stats say to play him, and his course history here says to play him, is John Huh.
I believe it's pronounced John.
I'm not nearly as good at that, but if that's what we need to do, then I'll let you pronounce his name every time.
But you like Johnny. We can just call him Johnny question marks. I think that works out too.
That's his gangster name, Johnny question mark.
Yeah.
I like John Huh this week. I think he's a guy that top 20 is well within his range down here in the bottom end of the salary. Summerhays is intriguing, but I don't know. Just doesn't quite do it for me. The guy down here, Ricky Barnes, is a bit interesting to me. Just sort of, kind of like Rory Sabatini. He's been a bit resurgent and, kind of found his game, I guess, after he, I don't know. Not too crazy about it.
Listen, if DraftKings scoring was only first round scoring and that's all you got, Ricky Barnes would be he'd be $13,000 every single week.
That's a fair point. Him and Scott Brown would have that market dominated.
But what about Scott? Doesn't Scott Brown strike you as a guy who could win this tournament? Guy lingered in some big events during the PGA season, constantly gets off to hot starts. He doesn't do anything really, really well, but he keeps the ball in the fairway. Like, I don't know. He seems underpriced to me in the low $7,000 area.
Yeah, and actually now that he wasn't really on my radar, but when you kind of think about what Scott Brown does well, this is a driver heavy course. I mean, you need to hit driver here, but you also need to keep it in the fairway, and Scott Brown does that better than a lot of guys in this field just in general. So he should have some good clean looks at the greens. The greens are larger than average here. They're easy enough to hit. So if his iron game is maybe not as sharp as normal, he's still going to be on the green, and you get a couple of putts to drop for you. And I can see a guy like Scott Brown getting hot and showing up here this week. So yeah, I don't hate that play at all. The other one that sticks out to me is Jonas Blixt. He's played fairly well here in the past, and he keeps showing up in some of the stats, but he's got terrible recent form. But that's pretty typical for Jonas Blixt. So I don't know how much I want to look into that, but he might be worth a GPP dart down there at the bottom.
So I'm going to kind of continue to run through these simulation things. One of the cool things about it, when it's going to be up on FantasyNational.com, you can sort by, of the 10,000 rounds played, you can sort by number of times guys make the cut, number of top 20s that they churn out, number of top 10s, top 5 wins, and their correlated odds against what their market odds are. So it's really fascinating stuff if you want to dig into it. I would recommend that you go beyond that instead of just blindly trusting it, and see how they're actually doing this, where they actually pop up. But right now, the guys that will make the cut the most times of 10,000 tournaments are Webb Simpson, Bubba Watson, Tony Finau, Austin Cook, Kevin Na, then Seamus Power, Ryan Armour, Luke Donald at $7,300, Ryan Moore, Party Marty Laird, Ben Martin, Chris Kirk, Jason Kokrak, Cantlay, Scott Brown, and someone named Xin Jun Zhang at $6,700. Why? I don't know, but his name's there. I can see it.
I didn't even know that guy was in the field this week. That tells you how much I'm paying attention to that guy. I just objectively, I'm really excited about this. The projections or what'd you call them?
It's basically a simulation.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I've only seen, I think there's several other guys that have done that in the industry, and in general, I think that is like machine learning simulations and stuff are really interesting, and they're going to be taking over fantasy sports. I think that Fantasy National puts that on, and it's over. You just forget about it, subscribing anywhere else. That's really exciting stuff.
Well, I mean, you work more with data than I do and can kind of extrapolate what it actually means more than I can. Can you tell people why that's interesting, though, to have so many different simulations?
So I'm maybe not the best guy to talk about it, but in general, I think, just because if they're able to, from data, say that these are the most important things that yield results in a golf tournament. Now let's take all those things, put them together, and tell a computer to run this tournament 10,000 times. Basically, the simulation is playing the tournament in a computer 10,000 different times and just telling you what happens based on the input that it's getting. So Fantasy National, I mean, I don't know what their input is, but based on everything that they put together, they have the best input possible for one of these models. So I would suspect that they're going to be the most accurate of any of the data models I've seen come out for golf. That's sort of it in a nutshell. Is just here, you tell it what you want it to do, and then tell the tournament to play itself in a computer, and you get the result. And depending on how much you believe the result, you're you could make yourself a whole lot of money in 1 week. I know one of the only computer model experience I have was with Daily Roto and their models and their simulations. And the one time I used it, they nailed Jim Furyk based on their simulations for a 10,000 tournament run. And it was when he went out and shot his 59.
Oh, wow. And I mean, Leone had a giant year last year at Daily Roto. He ended up coming second in the Masters Millionaire Maker. Dink had some big cashes in golf as well in the 333 in back-to-back weeks. So, I mean, if it's half as good as that, I mean, people are going to be making money off this. So I think the big thing to understand when it comes to golf stats and when it comes to simulations is that I think football and golf are probably the two hardest to really project out, because in football you're dealing with human elements. They all deal with human elements, but you're dealing with human interaction between different people on a field, different flow of a game where, if it's a very pass-heavy situation, these people are going to benefit. But I mean, if people were so good at doing that, we'd know who was going to win every game, and obviously we don't know. And in golf, the biggest thing, I mean, there is a gigantic mental factor playing against yourself on the course that you just can't really account for, and that really is a big part of it. And I think that actually watching the golf really goes hand in hand with using a lot of these projections as well.
Absolutely. I mean, golf is one of those sports where you really kind of have to see it, maybe more on Sundays than any other day, because you really need to see how a guy that's within 5, 10 strokes of the lead reacts, especially if it's first time or second time being in that position, and maybe even more importantly, what the guy does when he's leading or in the top five. We saw what happened to DJ last week. Just yeah, I'm running away with the golf tournament, and then I decided to shoot a +6 or a +5 on Sunday and just give it away. That's mental. That's not his ability or anything else. That's can DJ close a golf tournament? You look at guys like Graham Dillette. There's obviously a mental block there. That I mean, it's. But the only way you're going to pick that up, just like you said, is watching golf. So if you're only looking at spreadsheets, you're only looking at stats, and you're not watching the product or finding some way to view Sunday rounds at the very least, you're leaving a ton of knowledge and a ton of information on the table that really factors into the following week.
Also, if you're looking for a corollary, there used to be the Jason Day, Kevin Chappell corollary, where if one of them played well in a tournament, they would both play well. The Justin Rose, Henrik Stenson corollary is a real thing now. It just happens everywhere. When one of them plays well, they both play well.
I guess I probably haven't picked up on that as well as I should have, but I think you're probably right there. I mean, they do tend to show up. Where did Rose finish when Stenson won the British? Do you remember? Because I don't.
I don't, but that was a really weird tee time split. So if Rose was stuck in the other end of the draw, then he was probably screwed. But they finished 1-2 at the Olympics. They finished 1-2 last week. You can point to other examples throughout the course of the year. They rarely play together in anything outside of majors, but when they do, they just pop up at the top.
I'm going to have to keep that in mind. That's going to win somebody a GPP later this year, Pat. I'm going to write that down right now.
Well, I mean, so I'm saying if they're both in a tournament, if you use one of them, you might as well use both of them.
Well, and to that point, they both tend to be priced a little bit below the top tier almost all the time, and they probably make for a really good stack to go for a slightly more balanced approach. Just in most fields they're going to be playing, I would imagine they're going to be probably right there in the mid 9,000 range, upper 9,000 range.
All right, last guy I want to talk about is Tom Lovelady. He's $7,200. He was 43rd at Safeway. He was 18th at Sanderson Farms. He gained 5.5 strokes tee to green last week, and he's been losing strokes around the green, gaining a bunch through approach, gaining a bunch through his driver. And on the web.com tour last year was one of the best putters on tour as well. So I think this could be a unique spot for him to use as a GPP flyer. And I don't even know what his odds are, but if you want to dig down and look at it, he could be a potential top 20, top 10 guy.
Yeah, I bet him last week. I had a little sprinkle on him. Didn't quite come through, but for all the reasons you just mentioned are the reasons that I bet him last week. And he's a talented player with a good putter. This is a course that you do need to putt fairly well if you're hitting these greens. So if his iron plays on, I can see where he can make a run and find his way into a top 20, top 25 finish this week. I'm not sure I'm going to bet him this week, and I'm not sure I'm going to play him in a GPP, but I do see the appeal. I'm not terribly excited about it, but I don't hate it either.
Final two guys I want to talk to, and we're going to jump back up to the top for this because we kind of glossed over them at the time. One, Patrick Cantlay, $9,700. The other one, if we're talking about ball striking at a course, Benny Ann is $9,100, and there's only one thing that he does. It's ball strike. Could this be a spot for two potential breakout players? We know the pedigree on both. We know they're both good, and now they're in this weaker field, and listen, we glossed right by them when we talked about the top of this list. Now, on other shows, people will not be glossing over Cantlay because he's like DFS players' favorite dude, but there's a good reason for that. He's very, very good. How much consideration should we be giving to both those guys?
I'm giving a ton. They both rank out really highly for me. Cantlay worries me a bit with his back and the back-to-back weeks and the travel, but other than that, if he's healthy, he's a shoe-in to win almost any golf tournament that he plays. If you check out Josh Culp's stuff, one of the comp courses that he feels like rates out well compared to TPC Summerlin is Innisbrook. Well, Innisbrook is where Cantlay's had his best performance and best finish this year. So, if you're into comp courses and corollary courses, right there's your reason to play Cantlay. The guy's a green and regulations machine. My concern with Cantlay, just one, his ownership being 9,700, he's probably going to get heavily owned. But two is the wind. If the wind picks up and guys start to miss these greens a little bit, it's not the easiest course to scramble around, and that is the weakest part of Cantlay's game. Not enough for me to fade him, but enough for me to maybe take some of my ownership percentage off in GPPs. But all in all, I think right now he's been bet down to the second favorite to win this tournament. I think Tony Finau's got him by like a point or two, but he's the second betting favorite at this point on 5 times.
Yeah.
So he's been bet down already. So there's sharp money moving in on Cantlay this week.
All right, well, he might just be too highly owned for me. I mean, if you talk about Innisbrook, you could just pivot on to Gary Woodland. I don't love Woodland, but, I mean, if you stack them up side by side, yeah, I'd probably give like a 60% edge to Patrick Cantlay. Then that means 40% of the time Gary Woodland's going to beat him.
Yeah, well, they rate, both of them rate out pretty well in both of the main models that I'm using this week from Fantasy National, and then Benny On rates out right there with both of them. Benny On plays well in the desert. I don't know necessarily if he plays well at this course. I don't think he's ever played the event, but he did play pretty well last year at
Phoenix.
Exactly, at Phoenix. So I think that if you've never played desert golf, I lived in the desert for several years. It's very different than any other type of golf. They put blind shots out there. The weather changes a little bit, and the ball goes further than people expect it does because it's so arid. Benny On must be pretty comfortable with that. This, again, speculation. But for the stats I'm looking at and DraftKings scoring, he rates out pretty well. Plus, he's been in pretty good form lately. He started to turn his form around on the European Tour. I can't remember the event that it was at, but he finished like a T22. I think it was the Dunhill Links, Alfred Dunhill Links. Finished with a T20, T22, something like that. Then he backed it up at last week or the week before, playing well.
11th at the CJ Cup, 21st at the Italian Open.
Oh, I'm sorry. Italian Open is what it was, not the Dunhill Links. So, you take a guy like Benny that we know is talented, and really towards the middle and end of last year, he was just a cut maker, DraftKings point scoring machine. He kind of tapered off and cooled off a little bit towards the end of the season. I think he's just kind of picking back up in the swing season, and I think this is an excellent event for Benny On to get a maiden victory here.
Yeah, I really like Benny On this week as well. The one thing that would scare me about Cantlay is the sand that's on this course. And once he gets into the sand, he's basically useless.
Yeah, if the wind picks up and he starts missing some of these greens, it's really concerning to me because he could go from being tied for fifth, halfway through his first round to being tied for 85th. Really he could. It's like the guy doesn't know how to hit a ball out of the sand. I don't know. It's really concerning. All
right, before we get out of here, give me a winner.
Benny On.
See, I was going to use Benny On. Now I can't use him.
He's my most heavily bet and probably will be my most heavily owned guy this week.
All right, well, I'm going to go with Seamus Power then. Let's go, Seamus Power. You said one of these plus 100 to 1 guys are going to win. I think he's 100 to 1, so he works out perfectly.
Yeah, I like it. I'm with you there.
He just needs to have not that disastrous round, but the approach game and for a guy that sprays a little bit off the tee, I mean, he can kind of rein it in a little bit here. I think that he's going to be a very, very solid play. Him and Austin Cook, Nick Taylor, even Garrigus down at that number. There's enough cheap guys this week that if you do want to go stars and scrubs, you can definitely do it.
Oh, absolutely.
What about Bubba? You think Bubba can win?
No.
He plays well.
I think he can play well.
He plays well in the wind, too, weirdly enough.
He's also a head case.
That is true. Although, you know who's not a head case? You! At DFS Jimmy on Twitter. Thanks for being on the line, dude.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Happy Halloween, and see you soon.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at ThePME. You can follow my work at Facebook.com/ThePME and on Instagram at ThePME. You can subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom for the audio versions, and on the DraftKings YouTube page for all the video versions, along with the DK Live app, which I recommend that everyone go download right now for Android or iOS. It's basically the best way to follow football, play-by-play, up-to-date scoring. It's legit. It's the only app that I actually use now to track everything. So go download that if you haven't already. Remember, in the comment section, $7,500 or below, your favorite play this week for the Shriners Open. Leave your DraftKings name along with it to get in the draw for a special secret prize that is coming. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.